this is Mrs. O'Neill for your Chapter 14 Review Questions and Problems. And again, looking at this picture, I see that there's a before the collision and the after collision, and what's the difference between effective and ineffective collision. So we want to remember, depending on where the two particles are hitting each other is going to depend on what the products, if any products, occur, depending on where that collision is. So you're going to watch the video and pause when you see that question or problem. You're going to see multiple parts sometimes. You can answer either mentally or on paper using a calculator and your reference sheets. You're going to continue playing the video to see the answers or solutions or explanations. And some of these are above and beyond what you're going to see on the test in class, but will help you on the AP exam. So number one is about rate law, and I do have a little notation here. So if this is our chart that they're giving you, notice that your exponents 10 to the -4 versus 10 to the -5. To make things easier, you might want to put them all in the same times 10 to the same power, if that makes any sense. Now, again, if you have a calculator, it's not that big of a deal, but if something's given to you like this on a multiple choice section of the AP exam, you will not have a calculator to use. So the easiest thing then to do would be to change your -5s to -4s or vice versa. And then you should be able to answer the A, B, and C rather quickly. All right, guys, so hopefully you paused. Hopefully you got this for your answer of A. And I want to also remind you that once you found the orders of the individual particles, the individual reactants, you always want to write it rate equals your K constant, and then each one to its power. And if it was a 0 power, you wouldn't have to write it at all. Letter B. Now, I used experiment 1 because most of the time you just use the first one, but if you chose the other experiments, you should get the same or very similar answer. And notice your units. Notice your units. Since it is the overall is the third order of reaction, you need 3 units here. So molarity -2, S -1. Letter C. And your rate unit is always molarity per second. And K, that rate constant. Did you get this as an answer to your first part? And did you get this for your answer of your second part? And again, this is on your reference sheet. So it's mighty handy to have that to find your equations to use. And then it's a matter of manipulating and algebra. All right, urea. Okay, here we go. Answer to A. Answer to B. Again, I try to write it out and show you step by step how I did the algebra part of it, as well as taking the anti-log or the e to the x on your calculator to get the answer. Letter C, also on your reference sheet, is the equation. And going on to graphs. Okay, so the next slide will show you the different graphs of your concentration versus time and so on. But in order to graph the other ones, we had to change our molarity to 1/, and the natural log. So again, you might want to pause and read this over, but you're going to want to look at the graphs before answering the question. So here are the graphs. So again, we made a table of time, concentration, the natural log of that concentration, and then 1/, the concentration. So here are the 3 different graphs. So from these 3 different graphs, can you conclude which one would be which? So we want to remind you that if you're just doing concentration versus time, it's 0 order. The natural log would be 1st order, and the inverse would be 2nd order. Now you should definitely be able to answer those questions. So here we have the order. Always looking for that linear graph. Here you have that rate constant. I just chose 2 points and then just did your normal slope, which would be rise over run. Mechanisms, here we go. And remember, each of those are individual elementary reactions. So did you get this for your answer of A? And notice what I like to do. I always like to line up the arrows. To me, that makes a lot easier to figure out what are my reactants, what are my products, and what I can cancel out. B. C. D. So hopefully that makes sense to you. And N2O5, dinitrogen pentaoxide. All right, hopefully you paused, you read that over, and this is the game plan just in case. So you might, again, want to pause this and make sure that what you thought of kind of corresponds to what I have here. And now let's look at these answers. Again, a little bit of algebra. So hopefully you paused and you saw each individual step and how I manipulated the equations. And I also used what we call that ice box, right? So to get you to understand what we start with, what our change would be, and then what would be the final. So hopefully that makes sense to try to kind of fill that in. HBr. Okay, again, this is pulling in from multiple places. Now that we are in our higher chapters, we can build off of all of those chapters that we've had behind. Again, this is why we do cumulative tests, and this is why these are really good AP review types of questions, because it kind of pulls in from all over. So, did you get this for A? Did you get this for B? And did you get that for C? All right, guys, good luck on your test.